gentlemen. Okay, we got a good riff session ahead of us. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't cover last. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I didn't cover last show. I just don't have time. We keep it down to the 60 minutes, so I just don't have time for stuff. But that's good because then half the show's ready for next time. We're ready to rip, and I don't got to spend 20 hours prepping for this shit. Okay, so here's what we're gonna be riffing on today. Jeff Bezos had an epic letter to Congress today. Actually, this is Wednesday. What's the date here? Wednesday, July 29th, 2020. You always got to say the year, because you go back and look at this after a few years, you're like, well, what year was that? So I always say the year when you say a date in a video. Hot tip. Big tech CEOs are, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Google. That's the one. They're testifying before Congress today. Bezos released his statement before. I don't know if the other tech CEOs did, but I was up. Came across my desk yesterday. I.e. saw it on Twitter, and I think it was a cool letter. We're gonna riff on Jeff Bezos' letter. A little COVID-19 update. Flattening of the curve begins again. This time it's personal. This is the sequel to the flattening of the curve. Remember the initial one? We flattened it. We let the gas out. Okay, we beat it. Everything opened up, and then we got nuked again. We're gonna riff on that. We're gonna talk about tech regulation. Benedict Evans had an excellent piece on that because the regulation's coming. If you thought tech was regulated now, it ain't. Not to the extent that the oil industry, the airline industry, a lot of these other major industries are. We're gonna do a whole kind of crypto riff. Augur V2 just launched yesterday, July 28th. This is why the name of the episode is "The Internet is Cool Again." Because I finally feel like the stuff happening in crypto feels like kind of the early days of the web, which I was a little one for. I don't even remember, but the way I think that the early days of the web were. But we're going to riff on that. I want to talk about Visa's statements on cryptocurrency, the Office of the Comptroller of Currency for the United States making statements on cryptocurrency, USDC blacklists, Financial Action Task Force on stablecoins, and New York Stock Exchange subsidiary Arca issuing bonds on the Ethereum blockchain. So all this stuff is I'm going to go kind of rapid fire on this cryptocurrency because there's a lot of little things happening. And I think we're missing the forest through the trees here, because there's a lot going on, and this is the stuff that wasn't happening 3 years ago when the price of Bitcoin skyrocketed to 19,000, whatever it was. This is new stuff. This is different, and the price of cryptocurrency, which, as I said on the show before, is probably the least interesting part of cryptocurrency. The price is only important insofar as it secures the network, right? Because the whole point of a cryptocurrency having value is that it makes miners, the nodes in the network, which anyone can be a miner. You can make a machine. You can set up a machine to be a miner. They get compensated for securing the network and verifying transactions and all that stuff. So the price needs to be a certain level, and the higher it is, the more compensation miners get, and the more miners there'll be, and the more secure the network will be. So it's important for that reason. Cryptocurrency has been in heavily speculative space for the past really 7 years. But now we're starting to get beyond that. The most interesting stuff right now is not the price swings. It's the actual stuff being built. I say this. I keep saying this some of the great my two heroes in tech that I follow, Benedict Evans and Ben Thompson. They're great. They're really good. If you subscribe to both their newsletters, I pay for both their premium offerings. They're super good. They're super smart. They don't talk about cryptocurrency at all. Barely. And it makes you wonder, these guys are 10 times smarter than me. When it comes to this stuff, they've been around longer. They've seen fads. They've seen stuff. So it does make me think in the back of my head, okay, well, if these guys don't talk about it at all, is this just hot air? And maybe the thing is, maybe it is. Maybe part of it is. But the thing is, the difference, my counter to that, and I constantly say this on the show, you can currently do things with cryptocurrency that you can't do with any other technology. You can send a U.S. dollar-backed stable coin. You can send a U.S. dollar anywhere in the world to someone with a phone and internet connection. You can never do that before. You can gain interest on your assets, and you can now build things Reddit, which we're gonna riff on if we have time, but we riffed on in this show. Reddit offering, which has about 400 million monthly active users. They're going to build cryptocurrency. They're exploring. They have a beta right now, but they're going to explore using cryptocurrency in some of their offerings. But there's just things happening now that weren't happening a few years ago. So that's why I think it's worth taking a second look. Anyway, okay. So that's my little quick riff on that. But let's start with Bezos' letter. So I don't know if the other CEOs released this letter. I'm curious to see how this. I'm really curious to see how Benedict Evans and Ben Thompson cover this. Again, if you really are interested in the tech stuff I talk about, subscribe to their email newsletters. I get a lot of my ideas from them. I think the biggest thing that I kind of disagree with them on is really their lack of coverage on crypto. But a lot of the stuff they say, I think they're really genuinely great thinkers, and I think you should take a look at that. This actually relates to another piece, Benedict Evans, that we'll be riffing on. Tech regulation is coming, so we got all these CEOs going to the U.S. House Judiciary Committee to testify about antitrust stuff. Well, Amazon, I'm pretty sure they're all doing antitrust stuff. But Jeff Bezos released his statement before. I don't know if the other CEOs did, but it was a hell of a read. It's on their Amazon Day One blog. He talks about his mom having him when he was 17. His dad meeting his mom while she was at night school in college. Well, he would go to night school with his mom when he was a little one. She would have a bag of books in one hand and a fucking bag of diapers in the other. His father was a Cuban immigrant. Immigrant who came over. He talked about his time on spending time on the Texas ranch. It is funny when you read it under the kind of through the lens of this guy's talking to Congress. He's trying to convince people in the United States government to be on his side. It makes sense that he's talking about immigrant roots, and he talks about his grandparents working on the Texas ranch where he learned how to be resourceful. Kind of all these things. It is pretty funny. He's just touching on a lot of the kind of the tropes of American culture, which he's not lying here, but it is just interesting. Of course, he's going to focus on this stuff. But read this and tell me it's a super, super persuasive piece. So one of my biggest takeaways is people think, oh, Amazon, you got to break it up. What's interesting is Amazon's 4% of U.S. retail. 4%. I think there's over 100 companies in the United States that do over $1 billion in retail. He talks about the fact that Amazon has a million jobs or something like that, and unlike these other Silicon Valley tech companies, Apple has their Genius, their Apple stores, but they employ a shit ton of people and pay a minimum of $15 an hour. And he talked about his their climate, their $2 billion climate fund. They're trying to get other people on board with. Anyway, it's a really interesting piece. If you care about Amazon one way or the other, read it. It's worth a read. It's really interesting. Anyway, there's one part I wanted to talk about. This was the way he ended. And I'm just gonna read it because it gets me fired up. I think people, especially people, I'm just gonna read it. It's not a coincidence that Amazon was born in this country. More than any other place on earth, the new companies can start, grow, and thrive here in the United States. Our country embraces resourcefulness and self-reliance and embraces builders who start from scratch. We nurture entrepreneurs and startups with stable rule of law, the finest university system in the world, the freedom of democracy, and a deeply accepted culture of risk-taking. Of course, this great nation of ours is far from perfect. Even as we remember Congressman John Lewis and honor his legacy, we're in the middle of a much-needed race reckoning. We also face the challenges of climate change and income inequality, and we're stumbling through the crisis of a global pandemic. Still, the rest of the world would love even the tiniest sip of the elixir we have here in the U.S. Immigrants like my dad see what a treasure this country is. They have perspective and can often see it even more clearly than those of us who are lucky enough to be born here. It's still day one for this country, and even in the face of today's humbling challenges, I have never been more optimistic about our future. It absolutely gets me fired up. I think people, and his point about immigrants see it more clearly what the treasure of what this country is. If you're born here, you kind of everything I can. You're almost numb to the fact that you have all this opportunity. There's all these resources. The nation has resources for you to take risks. go to a great university. There's all these things available to you. There's a lot of things that aren't, right. We got some serious problems. Housing skyrocketing, healthcare skyrocketing, cost of that skyrocketing. We do have problems, but it's easy to lose sight of the fact that there is a reason immigrants come to the United States. There's a reason that the best companies in the world are built in the United States. There's a reason that a lot of the innovation happens in the United States. And it's easy to forget that. It's easy to dog on the U.S. I think a lot of people do. They get caught in this trap. They don't. I really try to look at things from an absolute basis, and what I mean by that is what is the U.S. Just take the United States just look at what it's doing, what it does, and what it offers, and the fact that South African immigrant like Elon Musk can come here and build $1 billion company and launch and work with NASA. And launch rockets into space with partnering with the U.S. government. These things, it's not a mistake that these things happen in the United States. It's just that paragraph gets me absolutely gets me fired up. And he does call out the issues that we have, but this is a Fukin. It's a great Fukin country, and I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see what we keep doing over here in this great experiment. And that point about immigrants coming over here, and they're in some ways immigrants are more American than Americans are, because they understand you come over here. They understand they come over here and they see the difference in where they came from, and they see how special it is what we got going on here. And it's easy to lose sight of that. And I actually want to share something. I want to share a little story. I think it was a telling story. I keep coming back to this. There was the classic thing in the not the classic, but a classic thing people say at parties or something. Especially I was living in SF for a year and a half, going to parties there. A big question. What do you do? It's like, Jesus, I'm not one to ask. I'm not one to ask that question a lot of times. Like, work at Facebook. It's like, okay, Jesus, what do you do? Which I think it's easy. It's easy, and I've dogged on it. A lot of people dog on it. It's like, can you really not ask a more, a more basic, more boring, more like in the box question than that? But I want to say this. I had a roommate. He was having a conversation with a French woman who was in San Francisco, and he said he asked her what she does, like, what do you do? And she nuked him, and I'll never forget that she nuked him. She's like, out of all the things you could ask me, you asked me about my. You asked me about my family, like where I'm from, like, blah, blah, blah. She eviscerated him. And we all kind of piled in on Chase. We're like, dude, or like ask a chiller question than that. And I've actually reflected on this a lot. Like, ask something more, I don't know. Like, but I've actually reflected on this a lot. Because in the her being from France, asking me about, you don't want to ask me about my family, where I'm from. Other countries, and again, this is anecdotal, but it is something that I think I've spent a decent amount of time in other countries, and I've picked up on this a little bit, at least, not just from this conversation, but I've kind of gathered the sense. It makes sense that someone from another country would want to focus on things like, where you're from. Like, ask me where I'm from, or ask me what my family is. That's like the old school, that's that old school European, that's that old world type of thing. Like, ask about my family. No. This is America. We don't care what your family did. That's the whole point. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter what your family is. And it's what do you do? what are you doing? And listen, there's pros and cons to everything. There's trade-offs to everything. And asking someone what they do is also, it's a basic ass question. But so is asking where they're from, asking what their asking what their where their family's from, asking what their family's like. In some ways, asking what someone does is a hell of a lot more important. They spend at least 40 hours a week on doing. It's a hell of a lot more important, or rather, it's a hell of a lot more kind of descriptive, at least, of who they are than asking about their family. So I'll just never forget that. In the United States, I think a foreigner, especially, they wouldn't really get that. That someone would ask, "What do you do?" Because the culture in the United States is different than in other countries. I mean, France specifically. They're fighting for fat pensions. They're trying to overhaul their pension system. It's an absolute nightmare. They have like 40 different pension systems. Macron, God bless you, brother. But I think people have this idea that America does. We are a country. We are a country of workers. We are a country of fucking hustlers. And is that always the best thing? Is that always lead to the most happiness for the most people? I'm not going to say it does. It can cause a lot of, the emphasis on money in the United States, I think is palpable. The emphasis on what you do there's a lot of pressure to that. It's not always a good thing, but it is a very telling thing that's something that is more. It's more of an acceptable question here. What do you do? What are you building? What is it that you're spending your time on? How are you making money? This is like a fundamental. This is like an American thing. So you're gonna ask someone, you want someone to ask you what your family did, what your family's like. What are we talking about? This is the United States. We don't care what your family's like. We fought a war to not care that your family's royalty. We don't care that we don't fucking care that you have X, Y, or Z blood. What have you done for me lately? So I just think it's a telling thing about American culture that question is something. It's not something that's discussed. People in other countries, they love their time off. There's not nearly in jobs seem to be on some level a means to an end. Now I encourage you to have conversation with people in other countries. And I'm not saying the U.S. is the only place where fucking people work hard. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. I'm saying the emphasis is a little different here. So it's a super, super interesting, it's just an interesting thing that I've always thought of. That I kind of want an excuse to share on the podcast. We don't care where your fucking family's from. It doesn't matter. In fact, the more I think about it, it's like that. Yeah, you shouldn't ask where what's your family up to? It's like, no, it makes more sense to ask what does someone do. Now I will say this: if you're asking the question because you're trying to size someone up or be a douche or see how much money they have in their pocket, that's obviously a douche move. That's not where this is that's not what we want to see here. But it is it's an interesting American thing. So anyway, boom, bada bing, bada boom. Bezos, he's going to be testifying. I think he's going to read the same statement to Congress today, as long as with the other three CEOs of those other companies, big tech companies. So we'll see how that pans out. But the United States is an idea. This is a fucking special place. And I'll also say one more thing on the U.S. People that, especially American citizens that love dogging on the United States, which, God bless you. Your First Amendment right to peaceably petition the government, tell them to fuck themselves. I absolutely love that. This is a very, 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 very special thing. Freedom of speech is not something that's in every democracy. Okay, it's a very sacred thing here in the United States, and I absolutely love it. Burn the flag, go for it. I won't do that, but you do it. Boom. We're not going to arrest you because that is a form of speech. Go do it. I'm a big fan. Trash the government. Do whatever you want. Peaceably. But damn. See, I get going on these tangents, man, and I just forgot what I was gonna say, honestly. Yeah. Oh, right. Here's what I was gonna say. I was saying people dogging the government. I want the U.S. to succeed. I want us to do well. I want our government to function. I want to do all these things, because if we don't, I look at the world stage. Because if the United States goes to sleep. Let's say in 30 years we're no longer an economic, educational, opportunity, military, innovation superpower. With that vacuum in the world, bad shit will happen, full stop. We already saw what the vacuum of that world was like. Before the United States, we had World War I, World War II. The United States came out of that, the global superpower, unquestioned global superpower. We still are the unquestioned global superpower. But if we take a break, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad for the world, bad for humanity. So I want to say this. I look at the lens. I'm humanity first. Before I'm American, I'm humanity. I love, like, United Arab Emirates launched a fucking thing into space. China's launching shit into space. Or they have a mission in 2022 to go to the moon or something. I'm like, go do it. I'm like, with this whole space race, I'm not like, let's beat China. I mean, sure, let's beat them because it's going to make more competition. It's going to make everything better. But I'm not like, China, do your thing. You're Xi Jinping, you're an absolute dictator, you're a scumbag. But, launch things into space. United Arab Emirates, they're launching a fucking thing that's going to orbit Mars. Boom, love it. I love rallying around space because I think it's something we can all get behind. It's not like country versus country, although that can be good for competition, so I'm for that. But I'm humanity first. I want the most. I want our species to survive. I want us all to have a bunch of opportunity. I want boom, boom, boom. I'm not like, oh, America, I want us to. The reason I'm so pro-America is because I think the greatest lever to make that happen for the world is the United States of America. That's why. Because we have the values and we have the military might and we have the allies. People forget this. We have the allies. People are like, oh, China's going to be a hegemon. They don't have any allies. Their allies are North Korea. They don't, and they buy some votes by giving some cheap loans to African dictators. They don't have any allies. They're not going to be the next world power. They're not going to be the next world power anytime fucking soon. Maybe in a century, if that. But no one fucking trusts them. No one fucking trusts them. So that's why I've become like more and more pro-America the past few years because I just think it's a great lever to pull for all of humanity. Because if America succeeds and our values succeed, I think humanity succeed. Our liberal ideals. I'm saying classical liberal, not new liberal, offended by everything. I'm saying classical liberal, freedom of speech, property rights, rule of law. That's the kind of classic liberalism, power of the individual. That's the classic liberalism that the United States holds dear. That I want us to keep exporting the world because I think it's a force for good. That's why. But I want the emphasis to be that I'm like that because I think it's the best. I think it's the best case for the 8 billion people that live here. Because a failing United States that doesn't have their shit together is a world that doesn't have their shit together, and is a world that's not going to innovate as much. It's not going to be as interesting. It's not going to be as safe. It's not going to be as prosperous, and we're not going to become a spacefaring species if the United States fucking goes to sleep. So this whole move out of the U.S., move to another country, or God, it's like, no. I ain't going fucking anywhere. If you actually care about the world, if you actually care about your fellow man and you're a United States citizen, you'll make this shit fucking work here. Absolutely. Because you can go to another country and try to convince them to, be a somehow make them a world superpower and be able to, be a force for classical liberal values and preventing this whole world from going to a fucking shitstorm. Now, we do a lot of effed up shit, and I don't doubt that. I'm just saying it's the best we got. It's the best we fucking got. So that's why that's partly why the emphasis there. Also, okay, we're gonna get into this COVID stuff. United States, proud to be here. Let's rip it. Get into this COVID stuff. Speaking of China, let's not forget that the Chinese government, the People's Republic of China, withheld information about COVID-19 for months. They were suppressing the guy that was trying to get the word out on WeChat, whom he mysteriously died. They told the World Health Organization came in and worked with them and said, oh, it's not transmittable by humans. Human to human contact cannot transmit it. The World Health Organization said that. So there's this whole, and we've talked about this on the show. Yeah, we don't need to call it the China virus, the Wuhan virus. We don't need to do that. But let's not forget we can't forget that a major superpower. This has nothing to do with picking on China. This is just China withholding information about an epidemic that could become potentially horrible for the world, which it did become that. Withholding it early on, that Fukin happened. And then the Fukin doctor was trying to get the word out. They suppressed him, and then he mysteriously died. Maybe he died of COVID. Who the Fook knows? But let's not Fukin lose sight of that. And yeah, the U.S. response has been hilarious to say the least, and I'm not excusing that, but I'm just saying let's not get rid of the facts here. Okay, here we go. So Derek Thompson of The Atlantic, they have this COVID tracking project, which I think is the single best. If you want to follow numbers, it's the single best source of. They compile all the state data and some of the U.S. territory data, so you can see all this information. So he had some 4 hot takes. I follow him on Twitter. He's got some really good stuff. Okay, so here's a little hot tip. The 7-day moving average for new cases peaked July 23rd, and it's looking like it's going to continue going down. So we hit our second peak. Remember, we peaked and we flattened out. The U.S. won. We unleashed everything, and then boom, the second thing happened. So anyway, it peaked again July 23rd. What's the date now? It's July 29th. So it's already peaked. It's already going down, and this is new cases per day. So I think it was at like 71,000 or something is what it is like the most cases found per day. And now we're almost doing 1 million tests. We're almost doing 1 million tests a day. I think we're at like 800,000. Okay, so he also said this. So take that for what it is. It doesn't mean open things up. That just means at least we're going in the right direction now. Jesus. This is the sequel to the flattening of the curve. This time it's personal. Let's see what happens. Okay, there's growing consensus that COVID reinfection is unlikely. Immunity probably doesn't disappear after a few weeks or months. So that's a good sign. Transmission to COVID-19 from mothers to newborns is unlikely to occur with basic hygiene precautions. Hospital mortality rate has declined significantly since April. One reason is that we've discovered new effective drugs, not hydroxychloroquine. So there's new drugs that are being used that are to great success that are lowering the death rate. So that's awesome. That's a little COVID update. I feel like you got to at least touch on this stuff for a little bit. Okay, let's talk about tech regulation now. Benedict Evans had a great blog post on this. Most of what he does in his newsletter is he just posts articles that he reads, and it has like a few sentence blurb on them. But he does have blog posts every now and again. I just heard a podcast with him where he says blog posts take him a hell of a long time to write. So he doesn't do them that often, but when he does, he's got something to say. And he's always got interesting stats. So let's just riff on his post for a bit. So he said, well, one of the things, today 4 billion people have a smartphone, 3/4 of the adults on Earth. In most developed countries, 90% of the adult population is online. So the smartphone plus internet is the first Fukin technology that is just completely that is going to be it's going to reach every single person on Earth eventually. So of course governments are going to be looking at it, and the whole early days of the internet where everything's moving super fast and there's no borders on the internet. There's no specific internet regulation for different countries. That's all going away is his whole point. So here's what he says. When something is systematically important to society and has systematically important problems, this brings attention from governments and regulators. Banks, airlines, and oil refineries are regulated industries, and technology is going to become a regulated industry as well. Tech, of course, is all of this complexity, but we're having to work this out a lot more quickly. It took 75 years for seatbelts to become compulsory, but tech has gone from interesting to crucial only in the last 5 to 10 years. So the internet is really what we're talking about is the internet. When we say tech, like smartphones and that's a huge Fukin deal. But what we're really talking about is regulating the internet, because that's what makes this whole thing work. If you had an iPhone that couldn't connect to the internet, you can all the cool things that you can do with it, and all the cool things that need to be, there are all these hot button issues. It's a non-issue. So really, it's the Fukin internet we're talking about. It's a thing that connects every single human on planet Earth. How would governments not respond to that? Now, to his point, they've been slow on the uptake. This isn't something we have people that were born before Fukin fax machines legislating on this shit. You know what I mean? Like his point is it's happening super fast. faster. The rate of change with where the internet was, even fucking 10 years ago, dude. This is absolutely insane. Look at the fact that we shut the whole country down. A lot of people could still do their jobs. Many people couldn't, but a lot of people could still do their fucking jobs. It's an amazing thing with how powerful the internet is. Okay, tech, of course, is all this complexity we're having. The idea that you can solve the social issues connected to the internet with antitrust intervention is rather like thinking that you can solve the social issues that come from cars by breaking up GM and Ford. So a lot of people blame, there's a lot of, there's bad stuff on the internet, regulate it. I mean, he goes into talking about, well, okay, you can regulate GM and Ford. It's not going to stop people from committing crimes in vehicles. So it's his whole thing is when people say break it up or regulate it. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Like, and he talks about financial regulation. Oh, regulate the banks. Well, there's a lot of different regulators. Credit cards are regulated. Securities are regulated. Fucking cash is regulated. Debit cards are regulated. Checking accounts are regulated. Okay, CD accounts are regulated. It's not just regulate. It's not just a yes or no. It's not just break it up or don't break it up. It's we need to develop. It's a multi-fucking lateral approach. This is very, 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 very fucking complicated shit. Most people, when they think of Google or Facebook, and Benedict Evans points this out, most people, when they think of Google or Facebook, they don't talk about the duopoly of the ad business. They say you want to talk about monopolistic practices or talk about reasons what's hurting the market. There's only two places you go to advertise right now. It's Google and Facebook, and they can squeeze people that advertise. They can squeeze them for higher prices because there's a fucking duopoly. But no, when people talk about regulating these Google and Facebook, they don't talk about that. They talk about regulating it because they're mad Trump's in the White House, specifically with Facebook. Anyway, all this just scratches the surface of the complexity we might see as companies used to thinking in terms of inherently borderless platforms collide with 5 or 10 or 50 different regulators and governments around the world. So we're already starting to see this with GDPR, with their privacy shield stuff they're doing over there. Back in the day, you could flip a switch, your internet service was available everywhere, you didn't have to worry about anything. There's now regulation going on. And what does that do? That hurts startups, it helps incumbents. Facebook, Google, Microsoft, they want the internet to be as regulated as possible. This is what you have to understand about the double-edged sword of regulation. It's regressive tax. Now, I'm not here. People get triggered people get triggered on both sides. Regulation, regulation's bad, regulation's good. Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. It's not that just regulation's good or bad. It's, well, what kind of regulation? Okay, the devil's in the details. People on the left say, we need more regulation. Well, what kind of regulation? Regulation is not always good. Regulation helps incumbents. Regulation helps Facebook. Regulation prevents a more competitive market that allows startups to come in and nuke these big companies that you don't like. So it's a fucking double-edged sword. But we got startups now having to worry about their companies are having to worry about what data is done in certain countries, and what they can do with certain data in certain countries and stuff like that. That is going to slow. Absolutely, it's going to slow innovation down as countries. And we talked about this last week. You're starting to have your Indian internet, your U.S. internet, your EU internet, and your China internet. It's all separating. It's fracturing. And this, at the same time it's starting to fracture, at the same time tech regulation is coming, we have crypto coming, which is why I'm so excited. Because how do you regulate something that's completely decentralized, permissionless? Anyone can become a miner. It's not. You can't shut down Bitcoin. It's impossible. Now, what will be interesting is the only way to shut down these things is some blocking, like specific traffic. Like if you blocked all Bitcoin traffic on your net, I don't exactly know how you would do it. I think there were Ethereum, which is another blockchain we've talked about on here. I think it's limited in China, and but at the same time, all these governments are going up, and this is why I talk about technology and open source software and verifiable encryption, mathematically provable encryption. we have these technologies now that a piece of paper does not protect you. The United States government can say anything it wants about, oh, you must protect user privacy. I don't believe it. I don't believe that they will. I don't believe that hackers get access. I don't believe it. Show me the proof. I'd much rather have there be encryption apps available to me than the United States government and a bunch of people in Congress writing some legislation that says apps must be secure. No, I don't care what you say about that. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't make it any more secure. What matters is this thing fucking encrypted, and can hackers, foreign governments, my own government read what I'm saying in my private messages? That's what matters. But at the same time, tech regulations starting to heat up. Crypto's really starting to heat up. And I want to say one thing on crypto, because I was just playing with Augur V2 yesterday, which I'm going to start with. I'm going to start talking about Augur V2. We've talked about this on the show. If you're a regular listener to the show, you know what it is. It's a betting platform. You can bet on sports, politics, outcome of events. Anyone can bet. Damn, I got an itchy nose over here. You can bet on these things. Big problem with it, the fees right now on Ethereum. The fees are super fucking high right now on Ethereum. Because the network's being used more and more, and the fees are increasing. So what do we have to do? What we have to do, there's scale. There's a lot of talk. The big conversation in the community is scaling. That's faster and cheaper transaction. Because if it costs $40 to make an Augur account, I just did it yesterday. It cost me $40 of internet money, which is crazy when you think about internet money for it to activate the account. It's like, this is not the future. We got to figure this shit out. Listen, I'm long crypto. I'm really curious. I'm really curious about it. I'm more than curious about it. I think it's a really, really cool fucking technology. I think it has a lot of potential, but I'm also not up my ass. A lot of people are up their ass with this stuff. They think, oh, it's going to replace everything. Bitcoin's going to replace the dollar. Relax. But yeah, that's something that's really got to get figured out. Okay, but Augur V2 just launched, and this is why I named this episode "The Internet is Cool Again," because my kind of first, when I think of the internet, when I think of my first kind of experience with the internet, like really using it, was torrenting. I don't know if you remember that. It's it was another sharing protocol like LimeWire. Torrenting allowed you to download whatever you want, any media, software, whatever you want for free. I mean, it still does. You can still use it. I don't really do it that much anymore, but it's a very interesting technology. It can't be shut down. When you download a file, then you share with other people, and those people that have their computers running, they can share with other people. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. That is super cool to me. I've always been like, yes, that's the internet. That's people. It's people connecting directly with people, and it can't be shut down. It's a beautiful thing. Now, granted, a lot of it is used for piracy and stealing media and all that shit. And I hear that. We don't want to just steal everything, and companies should get compensated, or movie studios should get compensated, blah, blah, blah. But it is still, I just remember when I was first torrenting and getting on these private trackers, these private communities of people sharing these files. It felt like it is so cool. It was so cool. It was epic. Super cool. And then, the Googles of the world, the Microsoft, the internet just got big, and a bunch of gatekeepers came in, and everyone's got a Google account. Everything, videos are posted on YouTube, and it's like, YouTube blocked this, Twitter blocked this. It's like, dude, this isn't the internet I signed up for. I came to this great land for a people first internet, for a user first internet, where users control this shit, not a bunch of fucking people in Silicon Valley or anywhere in the world. So when I say the internet is cool again, I mean this. I mean that Augur V2 is a betting platform that's available everywhere in the world, permissionless. Well, so it's not. That's what I want to get to. It's available on the internet. It's decentralized. It can't be shut down. It's on interplanetary it's on the interplanetary file system. Super interesting project. So it's not can't exactly it can't easily be shut down. We'll say that. But if you're in the United States or the UK, you can't technically use the platform. I went on to go try. I even used a VPN to try to play with the interface, and I could not. And I gotta figure out what the deal is there, because they're trying to be super. They're trying to not get their asses sued, because there's a foundation that does all the research and does all the stuff, but then there's a whole nother entity that actually allows you to use the platform to bet. So it's like they build the technology, but then they have a firewall, and not literally a firewall. They have, think of a vacuum seal, boom, another entity, but they're still related, let's be honest, that actually develops the the platform on top of it that allows people to make bets. And those are blocked in certain countries. And even using a VPN, I couldn't access. But it's like these are betting is illegal in the United States, but I'm sure there's going to be a way around this. But this is what we talk about. Betting is legal in certain states, but I think prediction markets aren't legal in the United States. But it's a super cool project. We're talking about a lot of, and this is one of those things where I think that this could be kind of an iPhone-like moment for cryptocurrency, because a lot of people bet on sports. In a lot of states, it's not available, or they have to use bullshit websites that are scammy, or use websites overseas. They're super expensive. Right now, $50 to activate your account on Augur V2, or $36. I forgot what it was, $40 or something like that. But that's a hell of a price to pay. So it's got to get worked out. So, and then you can't even use it in the United States. I couldn't even use it through a VPN. But I'm sure the community is going to establish ways around that. You're not going to stop people from using this decentralized network to be able to bet on things. It's going to be super interesting. So we'll see what happens. I wish the Augur team the best of luck. I've been following this project for a while. Yeah. So, yeah, I suppose I might as well riff on this. So in terms of, I talk a lot about crypto. We don't really talk about it from an investing perspective. I'll say this: don't buy any cryptocurrency you're not willing to lose. Assume when you buy it, the money is gone. And when I say that, assume the value is going to drop to zero. Don't do it as an investment. But I'll say this: the cryptocurrency I do have, my portfolio is basically split 55% Ether, like 35%. Now I'm going to be a little off here. 35% Bitcoin, 5% Rep, which is the Augur token, and like 5% just whatever all the other coins are on, that are available. Just some of the other top, just a grab bag of coins. Just kind of spread out because why the hell not? So that's kind of where my head is at with all this stuff. Again, I'm not following the prices every day. I kind of just set it and forget it. I usually find out the prices from my friends. Actually, they text me like, "What's going on with Bitcoin?" I'm like, "What?" And I look up the price. I'm like, "Oh, okay, it's gone up or it's gone down, or Ether's gone up or gone down." But yeah, in terms of what I think is kind of the most, what are the most, what I have the most belief in. Really, I could say anything on here, but it's really like 55%, 55% Ether, 35% Bitcoin, 5% Rep, this Rep token, just because I think it's a super interesting project and, supporting the cause, and then, 5% spread across. I don't even know if that adds up to 100, but it's about that. It's not Fukin investment advice. Don't put any money that you're not willing to lose 100% completely. I'm a big fan of invest in the stock market first. If you're trying to actually build wealth, do that. But if you totally understand the risks of cryptocurrency, you want to dabble in it, get a Coinbase account, have a little bit of fun again. But don't let it get to a point where you have so much in there. If you're losing sleep over it and thinking about it every day, you've done it wrong. You need to have less than that. You don't want to be thinking about it all the time. It's not a fun way to do it. Because ultimately life's about living, not about Fukin having a number for something you bought go up. That's not that enjoyable. Well, when it does go up, it is, but the whole process of worrying about it and all this shit, go build something, go start a company or something if you want to, there's better uses of your energy and time. But, okay. So I do want to talk, just where crypto is today. Early cryptocurrency was really focused on, okay, what does this chain do? Okay, here's another platform. Bitcoin can do this. We're going to add these features, which there haven't really been many. Well, there have been, but not really like user-facing features. The network has improved over time. It's constantly getting updated. Actually, it's open source on GitHub. But there's a bunch of other chains and cryptocurrencies. Ethereum. Early on, it was like, okay, what can this thing do? And now a lot of the conversation is what's being built on it. So we've shifted to what can the chain do to. And I think this is a good transition to what's actually being built on it. Ethereum is there's people building things on it, which is super super interesting. So the conversation is completely shifted to kind of theoretical stuff to you can actually do things with this, and that is what's super interesting. So when I kind of look at the way I kind of parse the news is I really a good way to know what the market actually thinks or what's actually successful is where people are building, and people right now are building on Ethereum. That's why I'm the most interested in it. If developers started building, regardless of the price, it's not even that Ethereum is the second most market cap. It is the second most or third most market cap cryptocurrency. I think it's the second, actually. Yeah, it's definitely the second at this point, because people are building on it. It's not the other way around. People aren't building on it because it's a high price. The price is high because people are using it, because people are building on it. As soon as people start building somewhere else, that's where I want to be. So I'm not married to Ethereum. I'm married to where people are actually building things that people can use. And right now, Ethereum is blowing everyone out of the water. That's why I follow. A lot of people are married to different. What they do is they buy a bunch of a coin and then they shill it on Twitter. They shill it to everyone. And I was just transparent with what my portfolio is like. Again, don't invest any more than you're willing to completely lose. Keep it to a small amount is my recommendation. But as soon as people start building it elsewhere, that's what I'm about. So it's interesting how the conversation shifted. Okay, let's talk about Visa for a second. Visa released an epic blog post, basically legitimizing cryptocurrency. I'm going to read a couple quotes. Today, fiat-backed digital currencies, commonly referred to as stablecoins, have emerged as a promising new payment innovation, combining the benefits of digital currencies with the stability of existing currencies like the U.S. dollar. Visa has been working closely with licensed and regulated digital currency platforms like Coinbase and Visa, the potential to extend the value of digital payments to a greater number of people and places. As such, want to help shape and support the role they play in the future of money. People, especially in first world countries, take money for granted. A money system that you can trust, because as soon as you can trust the money system, as soon as you can trust U.S. dollar, you can trust the euro, which are both currencies that you can trust. As soon as you don't think that the government is just going to print a shit ton of it and the value is going to be destroyed, as soon as you know that unit of exchange you're working with is going to maintain value and that other people think it'll maintain value, that allows you to do what? That allows you to create things and start selling things. That allows you to create a business. So that's why I'm also super interested in cryptocurrency, because I think it's going to bring payments to a lot of. I don't think we've seen it. We haven't seen it being like, it hasn't become like a payment network for a lot of, rural areas. It hasn't quite hit that. What we have seen people use, we have seen cases of people buying Bitcoin when their local currency is, there's capital controls and they can't get their money out of the country. They're converting into Bitcoin. We have seen that for sure. But we haven't seen it become like and maybe it is in some places, but I haven't seen it become like a wide unit of exchange. People aren't like really they're not selling their wares in a marketplace with it. That's why payments are so vital. People are like, I have Venmo, and yes, in the United States, we can trust, for the most part, we can trust our banking system. We can trust that we can send money to people, and we're not going to get fleeced on fees. As soon as you have to send it outside the United States, as soon as even when you have to send it within the United States, if you're sending a lot of money, like Venmo has a limit on them. I think you can send like the max of like there's some max per week. It's pretty fucking low too. But as soon as you want to go outside of that, it takes a few days to transfer some money. It's a joke. But you talk about international transfers. You talk about living in a country where you can't trust the currency. Cryptocurrency is a fucking godsend. Or at least it's an alternative. So I'm pumped that Visa. People, this is what I'm talking about. We're talking about Visa releasing posts on cryptocurrency, and specifically on stable coins. So they're talking specifically about stable coins, so tied to the U.S. dollar. They're not saying Bitcoin. They're saying like your USDCs of the world, your DAIs of the world, your Tethers. Those are all stable coins tied to the U.S. dollar. But it's this isn't fringe stuff anymore. And granted, maybe Visa's just releasing this blog post to be cool. They have some VPs like, oh, cryptocurrency is super hot. But at least they're not just saying crypto. They actually know what a stable coin is. So that's cool. Okay, another thing. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, a U.S. government organization, ensures a safe and sound national banking system for all Americans. Federally chartered banks and thrifts may provide custody services for crypto assets. Okay, banks can now hold crypto assets. What does that mean? What's hilarious is this is like a vault company, fucking holding. Well, that's a little disingenuous. It's not, but it's like, why would I trust a Bank of America holding cryptocurrency? They don't know. they're not an internet first company. They don't know. They're good at they're a highly regulated institution. They don't have the smartest people there. They have fucking lawyers, okay? They don't have the smartest technologists there. I would not trust my cryptocurrency with any bank. Right now I wouldn't. Maybe in 20 years when they hire a bunch of people and actually have good infrastructure around it, but I wouldn't trust it. And granted, if they are insured, then even if they lose it, your money's not going to be gone. So that's fine. That's the ultimate security right there. But that's crazy. Comptroller of the Currency, which I think the head of this or something worked at Coinbase, and then Trump hired his ass. And I think he's who works here. So we have a guy that was formerly at Coinbase, which is the largest, it's the most trusted currency, cryptocurrency exchange, especially in the U.S. And I think in the world they've showed themselves to be top notch. But that is a super interesting development. Okay, another thing. The Financial Action Task Force, which is founded by the G7 to combat money laundering and terrorist financing, I think they shortened it to TF, is looking at stablecoins. They released like a 40-page. I did not read the whole 40-page report PDF on stablecoins, but they're talking about how they need to address it. This is a G7 is a group of the rich countries, the top. I think fucking Russia, United States, fucking I believe China's in there, France, Germany, Canada, maybe, I forget. But anyway, it's top kind of global superpower level countries. And they're talking about cryptocurrency. This stuff is real. This stuff is here. So what I just thought of though? It's like, these large government organizations have to address drugs, right? They have to address heroin. They have to address drug money laundering and stuff. But it's not like drugs are like everyone's just transacting. This is a counter case to cryptocurrency. It's not as if everyone's just heroin's not everywhere. Just because a big institution is having to address it doesn't mean that it's a success. I would say heroin overall is not a success. Your mammy and pappy aren't just, your average Joe isn't doing it. So maybe cryptocurrency kind of, who knows, guys? Maybe it kind of stops and just becomes this kind of fringe thing, and is used kind of on the side, but it doesn't just fully. But I think it will. And I think it's got a great shot, and I hope it does, because I think it's going to bring power back to the users. Okay, we've got like 5 minutes here, if that. Okay, so I've actually only got one more little piece here. Yeah. So also, I meant to cover this a few weeks ago. New York, a subsidiary of the New York Stock Exchange called Arca has launched an SEC-registered bond fund that uses public Ethereum. Shares are represented by ERC 1404 tokens. So there are shares of a bond fund represented on Ethereum. They're being settled on Ethereum. Which in ERC, I don't know what a 1404 token is, but there's different types of tokens. Like there's non-fungible tokens, like there's tokens that can't be spent, like you can't divide them. Like a US dollar-backed token, it can be divided up to like 10 decimal places, right? It can be separated. But some tokens can't. It's just like a digital object, like a crypto kitty. You don't have half of a crypto kitty. There's different types of tokens. Only in 2020 would I have cryptocurrency. I have New York Stock Exchange and a fucking talking about a kitty in the same fucking sentence, dude. This is why I'm saying the internet's cool again. This crypto shit is super, super, super fucking cool, and I'm having a hell of a lot of fun following it. But yeah, they're settling bond funds on Ethereum, on a public blockchain. You see the SEC, you can see the fucking you can see on the SEC website that they're talking about Ethereum and kind of how it works, and making a case for it. So it's super, super fucking interesting. This stuff is happening, and it's the single most interesting thing we got going on right now. Okay, there's once again stuff I did not cover. We got some stuff that I've already got for next time. That'll be epic, because I do like keeping this under 60 minutes, well under 60 minutes, so you can get on with your day. Try to give you kind of the hot takes, what you need to know, not what you need to know, what I think is interesting. Let's say that, and hopefully what I think is interesting are things that I think. I kind of look at this I look into the camera like, these are the things that no one is talking about, or not enough people are talking about, or this is the thing that cuts through it, and I'm like trying to scream at you. I'm like, yo, scream at the world, like, yo, this shit is happening. Pay attention. That's kind of how I look at this. This is good. It formulates my thoughts. It formulates, yeah, it helps me formulate my thoughts, helps me, helps me learn more about this stuff, and also hopefully helps some other people learn too. It's a good little project. Okay, it's been Dick Lucas, No Gradient. We do this every week. We do this every Wednesday, 7 a.m. Sometimes the time changes, but it's pretty much, it's once a week. It's available wherever podcasts are available. Just search No Gradient. If you want to contribute to the show, go to patreon.com/No Gradient. You can become a monthly Patreon, and you get access to the show notes. And there's a community in there. Sometimes people ask questions. Shout out Matt Buckley, and I'll talk about them on the show. So if you want to ask questions, talk about it on the show. Any feedback, as always, greatly appreciated. If you got my number, text me. Shout me out on Twitter, Dixie Lucas. Let me know if you have any questions. Dick@nogradient.com is my email. Hit me up. This has been fun. This has been chill. Let's keep this whole cryptocurrency thing going. Let's keep this experiment of the United States keep going and form a more perfect union every day. It's a very, very vital thing. It's vital for this country and the citizens here, but I think it's also vital for the world, and I sincerely believe that. We'll be doing it live once a week. We're going to keep it going. We're going to keep it chill. We will be changing the setup pretty soon because I'm moving to Venice, so that'll be chill. So maybe I'm going to be doing it on a balcony, kind of a chiller setup, maybe better lighting, a better mic. I don't know what the deal is. But yeah, we'll figure it out. We're having fun with it. Okay, people, one love. This has been chill. You are my people. And by the way, if you reach out to me, it makes my day and say, oh, I listened. Thank you. This is fun. Okay, let's just keep talking about the future, baby. Let's keep talking about things that are interesting. That's what we're going to keep doing. Bada bing, motherfucking, bada, motherfucking.